Welcome to today's Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here because today we're breaking down an analysis of raw, real-world horror stories. We're going to look closely at situations that prove the absolute most terrifying encounters you can possibly imagine. Yeah, they aren't conjured up in Hollywood. They are completely 100% grounded in our everyday reality.
I want you to take a second and really think about the question. What is the most terrifying thing in the world? Is it the dark? Is it ghosts? Or is it something else entirely?
You know, as a culture, we're kind of obsessed with the myth. We fear ghosts, demons, and supernatural entities haunting old houses. But the reality is actually way more dangerous. The true horror isn't the paranormal. It's ordinary flesh and blood strangers who cross our boundaries and invade our lives, often in broad daylight.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. Real monsters aren't ghosts, debunking the paranormal.
So, take a couple named Ron and Tina. They bought a nice new house and quickly developed this intense paranoia of a haunting. A missing coffee mug? Blamed on a poltergeist. Nighttime banging? Spirits, obviously. A foul odor? Must be a demonic presence. But when the narrator went to debunk the haunting by recording a quick selfie video in the dark basement, he caught something horrifying right over his shoulder. And it wasn't a ghost. It was a sickly, deeply unwell man who was secretly living right there among their storage boxes. The sudden shift from spooky, supernatural dread to visceral, real-world panic is almost hard to wrap your head around. The narrator bolted upstairs, slammed the basement door, and just held it shut with absolutely all his might. And on the other side of that wood, the old man wasn't some silent apparition. He was violently screaming, trying to pull the door open, eventually wailing, "No, no, no," over and over again, until he literally busted right through the door and escaped out the back of the house. Which brings us to Section 2, the obsessive stalker, when they follow you home. This sequence of events perfectly maps out how a brief, single bad decision can literally open the door to a lingering predator. So, an 18-year-old gets arrested for a totally foolish attempt to steal a phone at Walmart. He gets thrown into a county jail cell for the weekend with a 40-something guy who goes by the name Bob. Well, Bob plays the friendly older cellmate routine, but quickly pivots to asking highly invasive personal questions, and even goes so far as to touch the young man's knee. And here's the scary part. Because arrests are public, Bob didn't even need the kid to give up his last name. He just used public booking records to find out exactly who his cellmate was the second they were released. Just days later, the young victim gets a chilling Instagram direct message from a fake account. The profile picture is just a blurry, dark room. The message? Miss you already. And that message was just the catalyst. Soon after, Bob was lurking outside the young man's home, rattling both the front and back doorknobs to see if they were unlocked. He even tracked the kid down and just smiled at him from across a local dive bar.
And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying patience of a stalker. Take this corrections officer who worked 1,000 miles away from his hometown. Yet, over a span of weeks, an inmate named Edgar inexplicably gathered highly personal family intelligence. First, he's asking about the officer's brother Stan. Next week, it's about his mother, Diana, by the lake. Then, his nephew's baseball hobby. Fast forward to months after Edgar's release, and the officer's phone buzzes with a ring notification at 2 in the morning.
It was Edgar on the porch. He was claiming to be selling meat out of a non-existent truck in the middle of the night. He looked directly into the camera lens and delivered this line: "You should open the door so you can see what I have for sale." When the officer warned him through the camera speaker, Edgar simply flashed this massive, confident smile, turned around, and walked right off into the night. About a month later, a figure matching Edgar's exact description was spotted right outside the officer's girlfriend's house, proving he had the capacity to track his victims literally anywhere. Moving right along to Section 3, Invaders of the Sanctuary, Breaching the Boundaries. I mean, just look at these red flags. Two friends, Laura and the narrator, decided it would be fun to explore a massive abandoned prison at 1 in the morning. Deep inside, they bumped into a guy named Mike. Mike claimed to be a security guard. But think about the context here. He's wearing jeans, white sneakers, and a flannel thrown over a black hoodie. Not exactly a standard uniform, right? Mike smoothly lied, saying the safe exits were caved in, trying to isolate them even further. And when he finally opened a door to a pitch-black staircase leading down to a basement, and Laura refused to go down, he condescendingly called her silly. By the way, the police later confirmed that this building has 0 security guards. Absolutely none. The tension hit its absolute peak when Mike stood right by the doorframe of that dark staircase and calmly said, "After you." When they refused again, he actually stepped toward the narrator, grabbed her arm gently, and tried to physically force her down those stairs.
It was only because Laura violently pushed him, breaking his grip, that the two women were able to sprint out of that building and escape with their lives.
But isolation isn't just found in creepy dark buildings. It's out in nature too. A woman out recording a peaceful swamp video was later approached by a man in a purple hat near the public restrooms. He immediately gave off massive creep vibes, asking to use her small fingers to pop his car hood. Trusting her gut and sensing extreme danger, she quickly pretended to know a passing couple to get an escort out of there. Instantly, the creep got into his perfectly fine, not broken car and sped away.
But the story doesn't end there, and honestly, this is the part where your blood runs cold. When she got home to relax, she watched the peaceful video she had recorded by the swamp earlier that day. Right there, lurking in the tree line, just over her shoulder while she was talking to the camera, was the man in the purple hat. He hadn't just bumped into her at the restroom by chance. He had been silently stalking her through the isolated woods long before she ever knew he existed. No way, right? Just terrifying.
And even in wealthy, secure neighborhoods, that sanctuary can be breached. A dog sitter staying at his rich boss's house noticed this escalating timeline of a mysterious figure dressed entirely in black. At 1 a.m., the figure was just standing down the street. By 3 a.m., the sitter actually caught him running away from the living room window. The next night, the figure was hiding behind the house in the dark. Finally, at midnight, while the sitter was just casually playing his Nintendo Switch, he looked out the window to see the man standing perfectly motionless, directly under the streetlight, just staring at the house.
The sitter, perhaps a little foolishly, went outside to confront him. The motionless man instantly broke into a full sprint, charging right at him. The sitter barely made it inside in time to lock the deadbolt. As he sat paralyzed in the dining room, the stranger walked up, jiggled the locked door handle, and right through the solid wood, delivered this line in a completely calm, rational voice: "Have a good night." Then he just vanished.
So, the crucial point we need to look at is Section 4, the lingering nightmare, the psychological aftermath. There is this massive, tragic imbalance between the physical events and the mental toll. The actual encounters with these predators often lasted only a few terrifying minutes, but the psychological damage, that lasts for years. Tina, whose home was invaded by the squatter, well, she now checks her locks 5 times every single night. The hiker completely abandoned the woods she once loved, and the corrections officer admits he hasn't slept well in years, totally paralyzed by the fear that Edgar might show up at his mother's house.
We so often treat paranoia like it's a purely negative trait. But for these survivors, their paranoia has been made entirely rational. These stories show us how the most mundane, everyday scenarios, buying a nice house, taking a hike in a local reserve, making a mistake at a retail store, or just walking a dog, they're permanently tainted. The victims learn the absolute hardest way possible that our personal boundaries, our sanctuaries, are deeply, deeply fragile.
Which leaves us with one final vital thought to take away from this explainer. We walk through life completely focused on what's right in front of us, naturally assuming we are safe. But given everything we have just uncovered today, take a look around. Who is standing just outside your frame right now? Think about it. Stay hyper aware of your surroundings, and we will catch you in the next explainer.